Thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to know how this ministry is impacting your life. So please take a moment and email us at mystory@cowboyjunctionchurch.com. Also, if you'd like to support this ministry financially, you can visit our website at cowboyjunctionchurch.com and click Give. Thanks again for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's message.
But we're in this series called Unusual, and I'm glad you get to see something exciting taking place in a building program because we're talking about the unusual. We've been talking about recently how to honor God, but now we're moving into the unusual and how God did unusual things and people did unusual things for God. And in this series, we're going to wrap it up on December 10th and 11th, which is a Sunday and a Monday. That's the 2 times we have church around here. Is we're going to close the year off with a great end of the year unusual offering. And we're asking everyone to pay attention for the next several weeks and to see what God lays on your heart and what your family, your tribe can do in that end of the year offering. Now today, I'm going to talk about unusual courage. Last week, what did we talk about? Unusual faith. Everybody remember unusual faith? We talked about Hebrews chapter 11 last week, unusual faith. And this week we're going to catapult off of that into unusual courage. Because here's the thing, check this out. If you're going to have unusual faith at some point in your life, you're going to have unusual courage for that unusual faith. Okay? No doubt about it. You can have faith and you can have faith and you can have faith. But the fact is that someday God's going to talk to you and it's going to take a lot of courage, some guts, some grit, if you will, to step up and to step in the place God wants you to be. And that's why I think it's so important. If we're going to talk about unusual faith, we've got to talk about unusual courage. Everybody turn to your neighbor right now and say, God expects you to be courageous. God expects you to be courageous. Now turn back to them and say, it goes for you too, buddy. You got to have unusual courage. And that's just it. So I want you to take your Bibles and we're going to go to a fantastic book of the Bible. We're going to go to Esther. Okay? Esther. All the ladies in the house, we're preaching about a woman today. Don't let me down. You better shout me down. Y'all better, come on, Abby, on the front row. Tell Jeff to be quiet today. Abby's got it. Abby's got it under control today. For everybody on our online campus, while everybody's turning to Esther, which is the Old Testament book, I want to encourage you at home. You can be courageous too, and follow us along in your Bible, iPad, iPhone, whatever. You may be watching us on your iPhone, so don't turn us off. But find a Bible somewhere. Second thing is you can join us in the online giving today, and your online campus pastor has been coaching you on that right now. But welcome. So glad you're here. In this book of the Bible, it's fascinating. And this is this future series. I'm just telling you, one day we're going to go back to the story of Esther and we're going to break it down. But today, I got just a short amount of time. I'm eastbound and down, load them up and truck it. I'm going to do some things that most folks think can't be done, okay? Yeah. Listen, I got a long ways to go and a short time to get there, okay? I'm eastbound. So come on, trucker, run. Here we go. Y'all ready? All right, so here we go. Now, in this story, you've got Esther. And in chapter 1, there's some key people you got to pay attention to. King Ahasuerus, okay? And I'm going to butcher names, but this man is an unusual name. Ahasuerus, okay? King Ahasuerus and Queen Vashti are 2 interesting people at the beginning of the story, and you have to pay attention. To get the end, you got to see how this whole thing started. Every ending has a beginning, and it begins like this. In Esther chapter 1, verse 10, there is this huge 7-day party taking place. 7 days of partying, and King Ahasuerus, he has got things going on. And it says this, and on the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, I think we all got an idea what that is, okay? You don't got to experience it to know what it's going on. We just keep trucking. He commanded 7 eunuchs to bring out Queen Vashti before the king. wearing her royal crown. He wanted Queen Vashti to make an appearance wearing her royal crown in order to show her beauty to the people and the officials. Babe, come out, let them see how pretty you are. Okay? For she was beautiful to behold. Every guy thinks the good idea is a good idea. And I just want to tell every man in the room, one of the greatest things I've ever learned, don't you ever do it till you talk to your wife first, okay? Don't you ever do it till you talked to your wife first. And ladies said, all right, here we go. And in Esther chapter 3, verse 12, but Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command brought by his eunuchs. Therefore the king was furious, and his anger burned within him. There's this whole conversation that takes place. The officials step up. Time went by. People are making a big deal about this. And the officials are saying things like, hey, listen, if Queen Vashti does this, what's it going to say to the other women in our community? What's it going to say to other ladies who stand up to their husbands? What's it going to say when a husband makes a request and the lady says no? What's it going to say? I'm not saying this story's right. I just want to make sure we all hear on that. Okay. I just want to say this is a story, okay? And I'm just reading it. Don't kill the messenger, okay? Yes, this story starts off and can show you just how pig-headed some people can be. But it gets so big, it gets so huge. It's actually ignorance at its best. But hey, it's our story. It goes on. What shall we do to Queen Vashti according to the law? Because she did not obey the command of King Ahasuerus, brought to her by the eunuchs. And Memucan answered before the king and the priest, Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes and all the people who are in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's behavior will become known to all women, so that they will despise their husbands in their eyes. When they report, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought in before him, but she did not come. So they're making a big deal about this. All the women are going to start rebelling if you don't do something about your queen. So there's an idea that is thrown out. And the idea is this. If it pleases the king, let a royal decree go out from him. Now remember, this is how this whole story starts. And let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it will not be altered. That Vashti shall come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. When the king's decree which he will make is proclaimed throughout all his empire, for it is great, all wives will honor their husbands, both great and small. I know, you don't have to tell me they're all a bunch of pigs, okay? All a bunch of pigs. I want unity in the house today, or the Holy Spirit can't do anything. Let's just all agree. The moral of the story is not for wives to just behave and obey their husbands. There's something deeper going on here. There's something you need to pay attention to. It's not the greatest marriage. It's not the greatest thing going on here. We have two people serving one kingdom two different ways. A lot of times in our own life, it can be the very same thing. But I want to be clear, we see here that something big is going down. The servants ended up noticing that in time, the king begins to notice the queen again. She's not the queen, she's just Vashti now. But Vashti would be around in the courts, and he would begin to notice her and miss her and think she's cute and how cool it was that we sat at the dinner table together. We never got along. We didn't really like each other. She wanted her kingdom, I wanted my kingdom. But still, it's better than being alone. And the servants speak up and say, no, we're not going to have that. I got an idea. Let's start interviewing beautiful young ladies to see who would be the next queen. And so that happens. And guess what? The servants recommend it, think it's a good idea. And the king was like, no, I want to get back with my wife. No, actually, it says this, and the reply pleased the king. Thought it was a great idea. Young women A lot of them. You know, whatever I got to do for the kingdom. And the king did according to the word of Memucan. This sets the scene. This is how it all began. I'm telling you, not everybody's courageous moment starts off with good choices. Wow. Not everybody gets stepped into, smart people recognizing your intelligence. Not everybody is perfect. Some people have horrible morals, horrible standards, horrible ways of being brought up, and your courageousness is not based on their decisions. It's based on who you are. That's why this is called unusual courage. Yeah. So it says this: in Shushan the citadel, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai. And this is a shift in the story. Mordecai is a very interesting figure. Mordecai is actually the cousin of our heroine today. It says, and Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, which is also called Esther. Esther is so much easier to pronounce. His uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. Stop. She has no one. Mordecai, her older cousin, steps in and says, I will raise you. I will adopt you. And the young woman was lovely and beautiful. That's very important for you to hear. In fact, for every person in the room, if you're going to underline stuff in your Bible, if you're a Bible underliner, you need to underline that she was lovely and she was beautiful. Because these are the two things that God keeps using over and over and over in the story. They're not the depth of the story. That's not where depth comes from. But they are the tool that God uses to change this story. And when her father and mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. This is how she was raised. An orphan that was now adopted and now turned into the daughter of Mordecai. And she was raised by this super intelligent, super courageous, brave person named Mordecai. So to get it, we have some things we have to understand. And this is how it goes. So it was, when the king commanded and decreed, and decree was heard. Okay? So it went all throughout the land that he's looking for a new wife. And all the beautiful young ladies shall be taken in, and you will be groomed. And it says, and when many young women were gathered at Shushan, the citadel, under the custody of Hegai, that Esther also was taken to the king's palace into the care of the custodian. This is very interesting, because the custodian of the women. Now the young woman pleased him. This is Hegai, the eunuch. Okay? And it's very important to pay attention that this young lady not only was beautiful, but she made friends. And this Hegai was a very interesting character in that he was in charge of all the young ladies. And she obtained his favor. Stop. For everybody in the room that you think you're ever going to get a chance to do something great, but you can't make friends, I want you to pay attention to just how important it is you look at this and see that you may be in a tough situation. You may be in a situation you had nothing to do with putting it together. It may be under questionable situations. We're not even sure we agree with this, to tell you the truth. From my standpoint, I can tell you, I don't even like anything about this, bringing young ladies in, bringing them to see the king. He is a married man. All she did was stand up for herself. He's acting like an idiot. What a fool. Come on, is anybody else listening to this? Okay? But it is what it is. Okay? And some people don't like that statement. But I know that I've been in a lot of situations to where it is what it is. My God is who He always has been. Okay? And it is what it is. And God's on the throne. And Tybeen, if you're going to be in it, you might as well make friends. And for a lot of people, they don't think that their bad situation should cause a good attitude in them. Wow. And I think you should stop and take a look at our young lady, Esther, who stepped up and said, hey, Hagai's in charge. I can either be difficult or I can make his job easy. And she finds favor with this man. So he readily gave beauty preparations to her, besides her allowance, which means she had an allotted amount, but then he gave her a little bit more. Then 7 choice maidservants were provided for her with the king's from the king's palace, and he moved her and her maidservants to the best place in the house of the women. And that's the funny thing about life, is that you don't have to be a sucker, but you do have to recognize that favor can be generated just by recognizing this can go easy or this can be bad. And my attitude has a lot to do with all of it. There's one secret, though, that Esther has not let out of the bag. She is being promoted. She is receiving all kinds of cool preparations. But she has not told anybody yet that she's Jewish. It goes on, and it says that Esther had not revealed her people or her family. They don't even know that she's related to Mordecai. For Mordecai had charged her not to reveal it. And every day Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare and what has happened to her. So here's cousin Mordecai, dad, who paces every day in front of where she is and kind of gets an idea on how things are going for her. Each young woman had 12 months to prepare. In these 12 months of preparation time, this was their moment to get ready, whatever they had to do to be brought before the king. And this was your one chance to work your magic. 12 months of preparation for the king to get one moment to see you. Each saw the king but one time. But the most important thing you got to know is she would not go into the king unless the king delighted in her and called for her by name. This is very important. The unless part is this moment we all have to take a look at and realize you just didn't go see him. This was the kind of king who said, you can come see me. Okay? Now, it says this, and I want to read this. It's not going to show up on the screen. Now, when the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abinai, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his daughter to go to the king. So when the moment finally came, let's check this out. The king loved Esther more than all the other women. And she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins. So he set the royal crown. What? Crowned her upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. The king took one look. The king had heard reports. No doubt he had asked the eunuch in charge, who's your favorite one? Who's the one I really should be paying attention to? On draft day, who should be my first round draft pick? You know? What do you think? What do you think? Okay? The king made a great feast, the feast of Esther, for all his officials and servants, and he proclaimed a holiday in the provinces and gave gifts according to the generosity of a king. Yeah. This just isn't a Barbie story. This isn't a story that we just jump in and say, okay, so that's the lesson for today. Look pretty, dress up nice, work your magic. This is just the beginning. Remember, this is about unusual courage. Remember, this is a moment where at this point, all we have is a beauty queen. At this point, all we have is unwrapping your gift and finding a Barbie inside. She had everything in all the right places. She had everything all fixed up. She was cute as a button. And apparently she shone brighter than the rest. But sometimes doesn't it feel like that all life is a Barbie story? Come on, let's be honest. Doesn't it sometimes feel like, even with guys, it's just a beauty pageant? And in this, how many people would look at this situation and go, well, she just got picked because she was the prettiest? And the fact is, they would be right. I don't want to blow smoke up your skirt. I don't want to paint a false picture. She was picked because she was nothing more than pretty. And that's why the story can't stop here. It's an interesting thing that for many of us, we have to pay attention to, are we just another pretty thing? I mean, some of you don't got that worked out really well. You're just not another pretty thing. And you would look at me and you would go, oh, listen, I'm not another pretty thing. So why is it that God keeps knocking on the door of my heart? And you tell me this, why does God keep knocking on the door of your heart? Do you ever stand in front of the mirror and think to yourself, I got nothing? And yet God keeps knocking on the door of your heart. You keep looking at your wallet and thinking, I got nothing. And God keeps knocking on the door of your heart. And you don't want to answer because every time you do, you show up and God, they don't pick people like me. They don't pick people who look like me. They don't pick people who act like me. You know, I got a few things going on in my life right now that it's a little intimidating. Number one, I'm stuttering more than I've ever stuttered before in my life. I don't know why. We've gone to doctors. We've talked about it at staff. And I've just decided, you got a stuttering pastor. That's just how it works, okay? If Mel Tillis can do it, baby, I can too, okay? Number two, I got hair not growing in some places and growing in others. And I don't know what the deal is. If I could do something about my glasses are one of those most insecure things. They're thick and they're big. Furtick doesn't wear glasses. Yeah. Ed Young just got hair transplant, and he really did. Ed Young just got hair plugs, and I just can't pull the trigger on that yet. If you want to get hair plugs, I'm all for you. I just can't do it yet. Can y'all see that even being a pastor is this pull to be in a beauty pageant? Come on. There's a story behind the scenes that's taking place. It's the day that Mordecai hears about something taking place. It's going to happen to the king. You need to know this, and it's behind the scenes, a sub-story taking place, and it goes like this. It says, in those days while Mordecai sat within the king's gates, two of the king's eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, doorkeepers, became furious and sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. This is Biggie T. So the matter became known. So here he goes. So the matter became known to Mordecai, who told the Queen Esther. And Esther informed the king in Mordecai's name. Why is this such a big deal? Because the queen now has information about a plot to kill the king by one of the two high eunuchs. Okay? This is actually documented in chronicles kept in the day. It's so important that you pay attention to this because something that you do behind the scenes could be the very thing that helps you on stage someday. Everybody wants to experience the on-stage public favorite, but you don't realize that it's not being on stage, public's favorite spotlight that you're actually looking for. It's the behind the scene things that maybe nobody realizes, but one day God can use to show that you're just not another pretty face. Okay? And the story continues. Esther chapter 3. And in these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman. Haman, everybody go boo. Bad guy. And he's the son of this man, the Agagite. He was a Texas Aggie. And advanced him. I'm being serious. I'm being silly, but this is fun. Okay, here we go. And set his seat above all the princes who were with him. So here's this man who gets promoted. And all the king's servants who were with the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman. For so the king had commanded. Remember how big a deal this is? Commanded. He asked his wife one day to come out and just say hello to the crowd, and she wouldn't do it, and she's not the queen anymore. He now asked everyone to stand to their feet, bow to Haman, because Haman had just been promoted. For so the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. Now, it's nothing personal. Now, you've seen some things that are personal in the Bible. In this case, it's not personal. It's a Jewish thing. We don't bow to anybody but our God. Haman, it's nothing personal. It's just that I'm a Jewish man. And we got a whole lineage of people, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We got Daniels. We got all kinds of people. We don't bow. And when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay him homage, Haman was filled with anger. Second time in the story, anger is used. Fury and anger. He got his promotion, and Malachi would not bow. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there's a certain people. Isn't it funny how it goes from being a person to people? Okay? It can happen in your life too. One person can do something to you, and now it's all those people. One person can steal something from you, and now it's all those people steal. One person can say something on Facebook, and now you're like, it's all those people. Isn't it funny how this story started off with, it was just one person who wouldn't bow, and now he's presented it to the king, and there's a certain group of people. Is anybody tracking with me? Okay, there's a certain group of, if it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who will take care of them for us, to bring it into the king's treasuries. So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the enemy of the Jews. So he takes his ring, gives it to him, and says, you take care of it. I just want to show you just how evil this is. Because a little bit down, this is what Haman is talking about when he's saying, I will personally pay for the right men to do this job for us. And it says, and the letters were sent by couriers. This is what the letters said: into the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. Can you see how intense this is? And all of a sudden, the story just got real. This was a beauty pageant story. And now all of a sudden, because Mordecai did not bow, because that's not what we do. We don't bow. You're going to have times in your life that your job is going to ask you to do something that you just don't do. You're going to go to school tomorrow, whether it's New Mexico Junior College, CSW, or USW, whether it's Hobbs High School, Junior High, Levington High School, Levington Junior High, whatever it is. We all have places we go to tomorrow, and I will tell you this, it ain't going to go good just because of who you are and the good that's in you. It says this, Mordecai knew that he needed to do something. So listen closely, the story. Then Esther spoke to Hatchie, Biggie Hatch, and gave him a command for Mordecai. He said, all the king's servants, Esther, listen, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner courts of the king, who has been called, he has but one law put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter. So listen, everybody knows he has one law. You don't go to the king. The king, golden scepters you. And then you go see the king. And the king for 30 days. So they told Mordecai Esther's words. So Mordecai went to Esther and said, listen, you got to do something. You are the queen. You have got to do something. We're all going to die. And she sends reports back and says, you don't realize no one goes to the king. Look what happened to the queen. Look at the trouble we're in now. I just don't make appointments with him, even though I'm the queen. I don't make appointments. The golden scepter, everyone knows the rule of the golden scepter. And Mordecai turns, and listen closely. I want you to listen to this very closely. And Mordecai told them to answer Esther. So he pulls the messenger aside and he says, you tell her this. Do not think in your heart that you will escape the king's palace, or any more than all of the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, which means if it's not going to be you, God will use somebody else. If you're not going to do it, God will do it through somebody else. But if you and your father's house will perish, yet who knows whether you have come to this kingdom for such a time as this. Esther, everyone thinks you're just another pretty face. Everyone thinks you're just a ditz with a crown. Everyone thinks you're just a girl. But what if you have been brought into the king's palace for such a time as this? Esther, you may be between a rock and a hard place. We all may die at the end of this. If you don't do something, you may die, and God deliver us. But what if? And Esther gave an answer. This is the answer that Esther gave. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, "Go. Gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan and fast for me." For all those new to fasting and praying, this is a deep fast. This is a do without fast. We do away with food to show God the intensity of our hunger for His presence. "And fast for me, neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast likewise. And so I will go to the king, which is against the law." It's like her way of saying, I will go to the king, and I'm totally breaking the law. "And I will perish. And if I perish, I perish." All of a sudden, the beauty queens, not so queenie. All of a sudden, courage comes up. All of a sudden, God's doing things behind the scene too. Remember the story I read you a minute ago about Mordecai and the day that he saw the plot to kill the king, and the king got word through Mordecai, and he did something about it, saved the day, and they wrote it in the Chronicles. One day, right after this, in this very moment, not only is Esther deciding to get on plan, but the king can't sleep. He can't sleep, and so he's laying up, and he calls his servants in, and he says, "Bring out the book. Read me the book." You know, it's kind of like, I can't go to sleep, so read me the most boring thing possible. And while she's reading it, she's reading, and Mordecai heard the plot to kill the king. And the king sits up and he goes, "What?" Yes, that's what it says. "And Mordecai heard the plot to kill the king, and he made mention, and something was done about it. And the 2 spies, the 2 eunuchs that were going to kill him, were stopped, and Mordecai saved the day." In which he didn't know that it was Mordecai. And he asked a question, "Whatever happened to Mordecai? What happened to that guy?" And they said, "Well, I think he's still by the gates. He still roams back and forth, checking on things." He says, "Did we ever honor him?" "No, we never honored him." "Bring him in. We got to honor him tomorrow." And it's something I want you to pay attention to. You'll never be honored in life for things you never do. You will never be honored in life for things you never do. But there may be things in life that you do that you're never honored for. But courageousness, an unusual courageousness, is doing something about something, even if you're the only one that's knowing what's about to happen. I know we're running out of time, but look at what happens. Now, it happened on the 3rd day that Esther put her royal robes on and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, across from the king's house, while the king sat on his royal throne in the royal house, facing the entrance of the house. You got to look at the details. She stood across, facing. This is a girl that wasn't some ditz. She could put a plan together. And she couldn't just walk in and say, "You need to see me now," or she would die. But she knew that she could put a little shine on. Okay? She could stand at the right place at the right time. It was a cross, which she was specific. It wasn't there, it wasn't there. It was specifically a cross, and it was facing, which means that she wasn't like just aiming anywhere. She was working it right there. Come on. How specific are you? Or are you just kind of like, I'm going like I am. I'm going to do what I do. God, you're just going to have to do it. No, you got to work it, you guys. You got to put the plan together. Don't be thinking you're ever going to get married if you don't get shined up first. And you may say, no, I want a deep man. There are no deep men. Heather Bean married a deep man. It took him 16 years to get there. Come on, can you see the specifics? I got to keep going. So it was when the king saw Queen Esther, when he saw her standing, isn't that interesting, in the court, that she found favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter, said, baby, what are you up to? And she came. I want to jump to the Esther part. Esther. He said, Queen, he said, if I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given to me at my petition, and my people at my request. My people? Who's your people? It's the Jewish people they're about to kill. So King Ahasuerus answered and said to Queen Esther, who is he and where is he? Who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing? Meaning, who would want to kill your people? And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is the wicked Haman, and brings it out. She brings Mordecai and Haman in. Haman thinks he's about to get honored. And when he walks in and sees Mordecai there, can I have a piano player? And sees Mordecai there, he kind of freaks a little bit. And the king steps up and says, this plan you put together is pure evil. And my queen has brought it to my attention. Listen closely. As the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Now, Harbo, one of the eunuchs, said to the king, look, the gallows. Haman was so excited about hanging Mordecai, he had gallows built. The eunuch speaks up and says, hey, check out the gallows. It's 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on the king's behalf. Remember what was written down, king? It was Mordecai is standing at the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him on it. So they hanged Haman in the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. We're going to adjust some things in the next service. You guys got the rushed version. Well, I'm going to wrap this up because I think there's some points and we're going to go home. Unusual courage. In 1 minute, I want to show you guys some things. Each one of us has something that seems shallow. But when we put it in the hands of the Lord, it gains depth. Your beauty's kind of shallow. But it doesn't mean that God didn't call you to be beautiful. But don't you dare walk around being another pretty face when there is too much change that needs to happen in this world for you to be all about yourself. Athleticism. So cool. Everybody wants to be an athlete. Everybody wants to be strong. But don't you be another cheap athlete paid a bunch of money. So then they ask, what did you do in your last and final days? And they say, I made baskets. I scored touchdowns. What a sorry way to live. When you got somebody like a Tim Tebow who can score touchdowns, but that's not what he'll be known for. Changing lives. J.J. Watt can tackle people. But you know what I always remember about J.J. Watt? He raised $37 million for the hurricane victims in Houston. Don't be another jock. Intelligence. Anybody can think. And anybody can think wrongly. But to think about the things of God, to think about what God thinks about, to let Him show you His wisdom, that's the greatest degree you'll ever have in life. affluence, having a bunch of money. You know, any joker can make money, but to know what to do with it, it's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Do you know that anyone in this room can have such a time as this moment? Anyone. It can happen anytime. But you're going to have to decide that God had called you to this moment, this place, this time, for such a time as this. You may not be doing what you're doing right now forever, but why does He have you doing what you're doing right now? Unusual courage is not the absence of fear, but it's the mastery of it. Unusual courage, doing something that you know has to be done, isn't the absence of fear, but it's the mastery of it. Fear either masters you or you master it. One of the most beautiful parts that you should go back and look at is that courage is often the result of faith. And faith is often the place that great courage comes from. And in the story, you see the shift from a beauty pageant, beauty queen, to a queen with leadership when she asked her friends and family to fast and pray for her. And the last and final one, this. And now I want you to get this big time. Are you an orphan? Or are you a queen? And for guys, just translate, okay? Can you imagine what it must have been like? The insecurities, the fear of this young lady who had to ask herself if she was going to be an orphan for the rest of her life, to act like an orphan and think like an orphan and be an orphan and all the insecurities. Or was it going to take some unusual courage to say, no, I am the queen. And I'm smarter than this. I live under rules. I feel like a limitless leader in a world full of limits. But it does not stop who I am in Christ Jesus. I am smart, and I just happen to be pretty. And I will find a way. God will show me a way. And she did. In the 8:30 crowd, I want you to know, there is somebody in this room that God is asking to have an unusual faith and unusual courage to be who He's asking you to be. Would you stand to your feet? On December 10th and 11th, I'm asking this church to have some unusual faith and some unusual courage to bring an offering to the Lord for our 2017 capital campaign giving. Father, I pray for my friends. I pray that you guide them, bless them, show them. Lord, we love you. Let this message penetrate our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. It's time for us to love God, love people, and have no limits. I love you guys. See you next week. See you later.